5.4. Please welcome Eric McNeil, your next storyteller.
When I was growing up, I spent a lot of time at my grandma Peggy's house in Mancos, Colorado. She owned and ran the Mancos Hotel and Cafe. When I was little, she lived just across the street in a yellow house. When I was about 5 or 6, I woke up one morning and realized there were strangers sleeping on her screened-in back porch in a rickety, old, musty bed. When I asked her about it, I learned that she was in her 20s during the Great Depression. And my grandpa, served some time for bootlegging, and they decided to move from Oklahoma to Southwest Colorado to start a new life. But she carried with her, I think, from the Depression, this sense of taking care of strangers and looking out for people who were kind of out of luck. And so she made her back porch available when all the other hotels were full, including her own. And she also believed in work. So when I was big enough to take out the garbage, she'd pay me $0.25 every time I dumped the garbage out of the kitchen. And then when I was tall enough to stand on a crate to reach the dishes, I was bussing and washing dishes, and it only took getting yelled at once for a customer turning in a dirty spoon to realize she was not going to play favorites with her grandson. I would mop and sweep at the end of the night. And then when I was 15, in 1976, I noticed that the only people staying in the hotel were permanent residents. So I said, "What's going on?" And she said, I can't find anybody to rent the rooms, and I don't want to mess with it." And I said, "Could I run the hotel?" And she goes, "Sure." So she set up an account, Boys Market, halfway down the street, where I could go down and just pick up cleaning supplies and put it on a tab. She gave me a ride to the laundry, the industrial laundry in Cortez, to get all the laundry washed. And once I got the rooms clean and the beds made, we turned on the vacancy sign. And she said, "Now listen, as long as that sign's on, you got to be willing to get up at any time of night to show people a room." I said, "Okay, that sounds cool." But she said one more thing. She said, "And you know what? If you think they can afford it, you can raise the price and I'll let you keep the difference." And raising the price wasn't hard. The smallest room in that hotel that summer was $2. The biggest room was $17. But that's because there were 0 amenities. It was a bed and a dresser. That's all you got. So I started renting rooms, and the most embarrassing part was when I was too small to carry some people's luggage and they'd have to carry it up themselves. But it got to a point where I got a little bored, and so my grandma would let me go camping, and she'd come out every night with a bucket of ice and fresh fruit on top and grilled cheeseburgers fresh from the grill. That was her way of checking up on me every night. And then when the rooms would all get dirty, she'd drag me back in to clean them up again. And this one night, this couple showed up, and they looked exhausted. And I walked them upstairs, take a look at the hotel before they brought in their luggage. I showed them the main foyer area upstairs where there was a sink where people could clean up. And on each side of the sink, there were 2 little rooms for the men's toilet and the women's toilet. And then I showed them into another little room where there was the bathtub for the whole hotel. And when the guy's wife looked at it, I knew he was in trouble. And I said, "There's a can of Lysol right there. You can spray the tub before you use it." And it did not look good for this guy. So we walked down to the room that was vacant. And I would leave these rooms, the windows open, because Mancos is about 6,500 feet, so at night it would cool off, and that there was no air conditioning, so that's why it would cool off the room. So we walk into the room, and because that window was open, a giant moth had flown into the room. I mean, the kind that's the size of a small bird. And I was so embarrassed, I decided I had to catch this moth. So I started running around the room trying to catch the moth, and at one point I jumped up on the bed, and I know I didn't take my shoes off, and I was jumping on this bed like a trampoline trying to catch this moth, and I finally caught it, and I was so proud of myself. But when I turned and saw the look on the woman's face, I knew it was over. I don't even know if I tried to make up the bed or whatever, but I could tell she was not going to take this room, and the husband looked really disappointed. But needless to say, I said, if you can't find a room somewhere else, you can come on back. And I'm sure she knew it would be available. And sure enough, later that night, they came back. And I remember the look on her husband's face. He just looked really relieved to have a place to rest that night. And I was happy that somebody had a place to stay because of the work that I did. But, you know, I never could raise the price on any of those rooms. My grandma taught me hospitality, she taught me hard work, and she taught me that I am not a businessman. But I am beginning to rethink this. People who can pay for it should pay a little bit more. And now that I'm retired, and I'm not going to probably apply for any more jobs, I cannot believe that I never thought to put hotel manager on my resume. Because I would have loved to have told him about that part.